Wizards Dev SVMTG place down there. We got decks. Today we really have decks, plural, with an S and all that stuff. A double deck tech. I haven't done one of these in a while. I used to do them all the time. I've seen a lot of support in the comments the last like 2 or 3 weeks for a Pathway Arrows deck with all these Deathtouch creatures that we have in the format. Ever since I first saw that, I thought it was a really cute idea, you know, and I wanted to try it out. So I've done exactly that. I've got a range of different budgets for you, all the way from $5 to $150. So let's check both of these things out right now. I'm going to start with the $5 version of the deck for those on a super budget. That's the low prices on TCGPlayer. At the most, it's going to cost you like $9 on TCGPlayer. So for lunch, you can build this version of the deck right here. We're playing Orzhov Poison Arrows, and we've got a fair amount of options here. First, start with the one-drop creatures, like I like to do. There's 24 creatures altogether, starting with 4 copies of Typhoid Rats and 4 copies of Ruthless Ripper. Now, obviously, Ripper is the best one-drop we could play in like any deck that we're trying to build around Deathtouch in pretty much any format. So we're going to play Ruthless Ripper. The extra damage is nice sometimes, and it costs 0 to flip up, basically. So we'll do that. And then Typhoid Rats is obviously inferior, but it's still a one-drop with Deathtouch. Naturally, we don't have to like pay mana to give it Deathtouch. But so we're going to play 8. We're also going to play 2 more one-drops. Why not? We're just playing black-white in the budget version here, so we've got to use all the tools available to us, you know. We're playing 2 copies of Mardu Hateblade just to sort of round out our one-drop Deathtouchers and make sure, no matter what Foch is, we have a one-drop in the deck. Just another thing that can get Deathtouch, you know, it's fine. It's worse than the first 2 cards, but it's still at least serviceable. 3 copies of Ayli, Eternal Pilgrim. In the budget version of the deck, she's probably the single best card we can play, even if we never activate her second ability, you know? That's 2 decks in a row with Ayli, by the way, but she's still surprisingly affordable. But she's, you know, that said, she's still most of the money in the deck. But Ayli is still just a 2-mana, 2/3 Deathtoucher. You know, second turn, that's incredible. The stats are really good on this. And there are times where we've got, you know, a guy with big toughness. We've got a bunch of creatures in the deck. So there are definitely ways that we can gain life, and in testing, I've been able to get off in the budget version of the deck that second ability exactly once. But once you get it off, it's not like it matters that much. We can blow away permanents. That's pretty cool. But we can in this deck we can basically take out any creature that we want to once we have a Pathway Arrows out. So the second ability isn't even that important. Just Ayli by herself is very, very good and obviously goes in a Deathtouch build. 4 of Fetid Imp in the deck, and honestly it looks weird, but this is like one of the best cards that we can possibly play. Sure, it costs mana to give it Deathtouch, get over that, it's not big of a deal. But this really just threatens to remove flying creatures that try to swing in at us, including hexproof things like Silumgar and OGW, you know. The card is fine. Like, it's like big fat flyers, Wingmate Rock, Manus Rider and stuff like that, which threaten to remove their guy if they want to swing in. So Fetid Imp has been like incredibly good as a defensive option, and you know, the one weakness that we have is that sure we have Deathtouch, things can just fly over us, but not with Fetid Imp out. He's actually a super important card to play. 4 Hand of Silumgar in the deck. It's a bear, you know, 2-mana, 2-power guy. This one has Deathtouch. It's actually a really good ability just to slap onto a 2-mana, 2-power guy, you know. Just sort of costs 1 more than Typhoid Rats and has 1 more power. There's not much to explain here. Just 2-drop with Deathtouch and 2 power. So yeah, yes. 3 copies of Sidisi, Undead Vizier, which is a huge jump in curve, you know, from 2 to 5 mana. We can play stuff in between. We can play more than 1 creature in a turn on, you know, turns 3 and 4. But Sidisi is just that important, honestly. We have to find our Pathway Arrows. This is definitely a good way of doing that. There'll be times where we want to find Ayli, you know. We just sacrifice like a Hateblade or something. You know, we got plenty of guys to sack to Sidisi, and she becomes like this huge toughness thing with Deathtouch. Just sits there waiting to remove a dude, you know, or even to swing in. Sidisi is probably our best win condition in the deck, all things considered. So Sidisi is a must-play card. 6 total artifacts in the deck, and we're going to start with the obvious playset of Pathway Arrows. That's the entire reason we're playing the deck. The point here, for newer players obviously, is to equip the Pathway Arrows to any of our creatures that have Deathtouch, which is all of our creatures. Use Pathway Arrow's ability to deal a damage to anything on their side of the board, and that creature will die because our creature has Deathtouch. Deathtouch works like that outside of combat as well. So even if they just take, you know, if their Siege Rhino takes 1 damage from a Mardu Hateblade via Pathway Arrows, their Siege Rhino dies. Totally works. Over the course of a few turns, you know, we take out 1 creature every single turn. And once we hit 6 mana, you'll start the turn with something equipped, you know, with pathway arrows. You'll pay 2, deal damage to something, kill it, and then you can equip it to something else for 2 mana and use its ability for another 2 mana. So for 6 mana, you end up killing 2 creatures every single turn, and that is a pace that is like really, really hard to keep up with. Just once we start removing their dudes, and it doesn't matter how big their dudes are, we can easily remove them, then we can just swing through with our smaller guys and win the game. 24 creatures, and a lot of them are like 1-power guys. But if we're destroying a creature every single turn, there will come a time, just a few turns into that pattern, where we can break free and just swing in with a bunch of dudes, and there's not much they can do about it. And the creatures we do swing in with have Deathtouch, so good luck with that. You know, they're going to lose more dudes if they block. 3 copies of Grasp of Darkness in the deck, and I know we're running technically a ton of removal with all our Deathtouch guys and pathway arrows, but before we get our arrows out, it's nice to have something that we can just say, like, kill that guy. You know, we don't have to wait for it to attack, we don't have to wait for it to block one of our attacking creatures, you know, we just say no to that dude. And that's really good against things like Jace or Soulfire Grandmaster. They just kind of sit there on the battlefield and do their thing, you know. And sure, once we have our arrows out, we can take them out too. But, especially with Jace, it's always good to have something that on turn 2 you can just be like, no, you can't have that. 4 copies of Read the Bones in the deck. We just need something, again, to help get to our arrows as fast as possible. And drawing, this is, you know, card advantage. You're drawing 1 more card than you're losing. You know, you play the card, you draw 2 cards. A net gain of 1. That's a very important thing for us in a deck that's going to run out of steam with all of our small creatures fairly soon, so this is a really good mid-game play to sort of, you know, restock us. That's awesome too. And it's going to help us find our arrows again, which is just the most important thing. Weirdest inclusion in the entire deck. Here's 2 copies of Chitinous Cloak right here, and I almost use the aura, the black aura from the newest set that gives the creature like +2 power, and I think it's +2/+1 and menace. I almost use that, but I'd much rather use an equipment in that situation because the equipment will never, you know, die when the creature dies. So Chitinous Cloak is really good in that if they do want to block one of our creatures, they will often have to get rid of 2 of their creatures. Actually, they'll always have to get rid of 2 of their creatures. So Chitinous Cloak is ridiculous. They'll usually let the creature through, and it's going to do at least 3, even more damage than that a lot of the time. So, you know, but if they do want to block, they can lose 2 creatures. That's totally fine with us. So Chitinous Cloak has actually been pretty hilarious. Here's the lands right here, and this is really all you need to worry about. You could play Evolving Wilds, and if you have the money, by all means, play Caves of Koilos, or play Shambling Vent, and those cards aren't even that expensive. I just wanted to keep the budget as low as possible for this deck. So if you have the things to upgrade it, do it. Totally do that. You can even play Scoured Barrens. I just want as many of our lands to come into play untapped as humanly possible because they have like 10 1-drops and a bunch of 2-drops. So I just wanted really nothing but basics, and it's totally worked out. This has been fine. Here's our sideboard right here. Some things warrant some explanation. Make a Stand has been absolutely fantastic and could make the main deck. Not only does it help dodge sweepers other than Languish or Flaying Tendrils, but we do dodge like Radiant Flames, Planar Outburst, Crux of Fate, which some people still play. So we dodge some sweepers in the format with it, but Make a Stand is also incredible in combat, so we can trick them into doing things. We have Deathtouch creatures, so they're going to be reluctant to attack, and sometimes they're going to be reluctant to block. So if we make a stand, we can either kill dudes they decided to block with and not lose our own guys, important for a Deathtouch deck that runs mostly 1 and 2 toughness creatures, or we can, you know, somehow trick them into a game situation where they think they're safe attacking. We can Make a Stand. This is in the board because it's mostly good against decks that run a lot of creatures, tokens decks especially, by the way. Make a Stand has been great, and you can also swing in with all your guys and get a power boost. That's not bad at all either once we've got a bunch of small creatures. So Make a Stand could be in the main deck. Duress and Despise are both in. You see the 4 of Duress. That's against controlled decks, you know. There's really not much game that we have against them. We just want to play like a straight up aggro deck, and if we play Duresses, we can get mass removal out of their hand, and other options we can't remove with our Deathtouch guys. Here are the power rankings for the budget deck, and it's only a final score of 52, but it does what it does pretty well. You know, it's a very consistent deck that's just got a lot of tiny little dudes that end up being a huge headache for your opponent at the end of the day. So, you know, I actually really had a lot of fun building the deck. Once it gets going, like, killing 1 creature a turn is great. Like, it's really, really good. The only other thing I really want to point out is that you could possibly play Stoneforge Acolyte in place of one of our 1-drops here so that you can more easily find your pathway arrows. But I haven't tried that yet. I just think it's maybe an idea. Well, let's run through the upgraded version real quick and see what we can do for about $150 in this deck. First of all, we're still playing the 4 Ruthless Ripper, but no other 1-drops in this version of the deck. We don't necessarily need them. We can outclass them with a bunch of powerful cards, which I'll get to in just a second. But Ruthless Ripper is still just as good as she ever was, and I don't want to take her out, so let's still play Ripper. The biggest inclusion in this deck is probably the addition of green, first of all. This is going to be an Abzan deck that opens up a ton of options and some pretty synergistic stuff. So, first of all, let's play 4 copies of Dim Protector, which is, I know it doesn't have Deathtouch, and 4 copies of Deathmist Raptor, which does. Dim Protector probably has enough synergy with the Deathtouch creature that is Deathmist Raptor to warrant its inclusion by itself. But the other good thing about Dim Protector is that we're going to lose our Deathtouch guys in combat via trading with other creatures. We might trade up like a lot of the time in the deck, and it's always good to be able to get one of our Deathtouch guys back. Deathmist Raptor, I don't really have to explain him. He's the best creature with Deathtouch in the format. He's super resilient. We definitely play the guy. 4 copies of Heir of the Wilds, another good thing we can do by adding green in the deck. Another great 2-drop with Deathtouch. We can sort of cut the fat from the budget deck by adding this. This is a very good. It's standard play some of the time. And Heir of the Wilds is good with Deathmist Raptor. You know, if we're able to get the counter on Deathmist Raptor, we activate. He becomes a 3/3. So that's pretty good too. But aside from that, he's just a bear with Deathtouch, and he gets a point of toughness over Hand of Silumgar, so he's just automatically better in a lot of ways. So yeah, Heir of the Wilds. We're still going to play the 3 copies of Ayli in this deck, and in this deck she's really even better, you know. We can gain a lot of life off of Ayli, and we have the Deathmist Raptor, Dim Protector combo thing. So we can just sacrifice Deathmist Raptor, flip over a Dim Protector, get it back, you know, that's a thing we can do. That's just an extra point of synergy there. But Ayli is just always good, just the amazing 2-drop we can play, so yes. I'm going to keep my 3 copies of Sidisi in this deck because she's so good in the budget deck, and she's been good in this deck too, you know. In this deck, not only can she source up your Pathway Arrows, she can go get your Dim Protector, she can go get your Deathmist, you know, she can still go get your Ayli. So there's so many important targets, Dromoka's command, that she can go get that, yeah, we totally still play Sidisi, and she's still a huge body too, so Sidisi. That's all 22 creatures in the deck. It gives us a little bit more room to play spells. We have one spell that we absolutely have to play, and it's absolutely amazing in this deck. That's Dromoka's Command, which you're playing a full play set of here. The ability to fight things when you have a bunch of Deathtouch creatures is ridiculous. That's really, really good. We can put counters on either other creatures and make them bigger, or we can put a counter on the guy we're fighting with to make him survive the fight. There's all kinds of other stuff we can do with it too. We don't have much game against enchantments in the main deck of the budget version, you know. But we do have the ability to play this thing right here in the main deck of the non-budget version, and that will help bust enchantments, especially things like Silk Wrap and stuff that can take care of our guys. So Dromoka's Command, just everything it does is absolutely amazing, especially even more so than usual because we have a bunch of Deathtouch guys. So 2 copies of Abzan Charm in the deck. Again, it's good that we were able to take out huge dudes. We need a way of doing that before we get our Pathway Arrows, and reliably too. We can also draw cards off of this. That's something that we want, you know. We're not playing Read the Bones in this deck, but we are playing a replacement for it, if you could guess what that is. It's always good to draw cards, though, and always good to put +1/+1 counters on things, especially when they have Deathtouch. So, yeah, let's play Abzan Charm. Where are the colors? 4 copies of Painful Truce in the deck. That's what replaces Read the Bones, obviously. We're playing 3 colors. We can draw 3 cards. Let's play Painful Truce instead. That's sort of the prevailing wisdom. And to finish off the main deck, the obvious 4 copies of Pathway Arrows. We're still running something like 18 creatures with Deathtouch in the non-budget version of the deck. So, yeah, Pathway Arrows is still perfectly, amazingly fine, and that's the whole reason to play the deck. So, everything I said in the first round there about Pathway Arrows still applies. Here are the lands for the non-budget version. We're running 24 instead of 23 in this deck. And the land base will still only cost you like 75 bucks on TCGPlayer, which is lower than a lot of mana bases. We're not playing like a ton of fetches or anything, just the 4 Windswept Heath. So, fairly budget, you know, for a mana base in this standard. And I really wouldn't change much in the sideboard, to be honest with you. You notice there's no sideboard coming up to my right, although you could play Natural State in that sideboard, and that probably wouldn't be too bad. You get that option, but aside from that, I really wouldn't change too much. We can, in the budget version, do a lot out of our sideboard. And here's the final score for the competitive-ish version of the deck. A final score of 67, which is actually like fairly respectable. It's only going to cost you anywhere between $150 or $200 on TCGPlayer, depending on what prices you go by. So that 67 is not bad for a deck like that's not. It really doesn't cost you that much at the end of the day. And we just bump up a lot of the categories that were slightly poor in the budget deck. You know, our versatility, our resiliency especially goes way up because of Deathmist and Den Protector. We're able to up pretty much every relevant stat in the deck. And yeah, that's awesome. That's all I've got for now. I will do Black-White Allies next time. I promise you that. There's a lot of different ways to build that, and I think I'm probably going to do a double deck tech on it to do a couple of those in a row, because there's a very budget version of that you can build. There's a very expensive version of that you can build too. So look for Black White Alleys next time. And if you enjoyed this content, like, share, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube things. It's really important to me that you do that. I don't want to just skim over that. Or you can check out any of these awesome videos I've also done. I think they're, I don't know, fairly good. As usual, everybody, I'm Deb from SBMTG. Just hit 15K subscribers. Want to throw that out for you. Thank you, everybody, very much. We'll be doing a video very, very soon on that. And I think I want to do an Ask Me Anything. I'm pretty sure that's what direction I want to go in here. Let me know if you're interested in that. And I'll see you later. Thanks for watching, my wizards.